Hope everybody can hear me clearly. On today's stream is gonna be, honestly, I thought I started the stream a little bit earlier, but funny enough I didn't. So let's go back to the chat and let's see what we have. So initially I was telling you guys that this is our first trade, the trade from yesterday, and I was telling you guys to pull out because currently our bias has changed. Our bias is now bullish. So get out of this trade. Honestly, SL was not hit, but this trade stressed us. I was in this trade from 11, somewhere even around 10 here, all the way to this side. So for us to consider sells, our directional bias, our confirmation for our direction has to change again. Okay, so what are we discussing today? Today we are discussing something very, very interesting, very short, very interesting. And if we get a trade during our discussion, what is support and resistance? So today we are going to discuss support and resistance, right? Supply and demand, however you want to call it. As we are analyzing the charts today, it's quite interesting today what we have here. So as you are looking at this and then we get a trade, I'm gonna let you guys know, right? All right. So today we are going to be discussing support and resistance. Now, support and resistance is one of the most important topics that can ever be taught in this market, right? Support and resistance is so important because it's not just anything that you say, oh, I don't like support and resistance. Support and resistance is not doesn't work. You know, I am into this, I am into this concept, I am into no matter what, all plays into what support and resistance. You know why? Because this is a market. This is a market, a live market that you are watching, and every market has two players, and two players are buyers and sellers. And if there are buyers and sellers, there's always going to be what? Demand and supply, which in technical terms for the candles we are going to be calling what? Support and resistance. So no matter what, whatever you trade, since it's the market, is still around the concept of support and resistance. It's still around this concept. Whether you like it or not, if you are making money, it's still around this concept. Okay. So let's get into it. Support and resistance are some of the most important concepts in forex trading because they show us where price is likely to react, pause, or reverse. So these are the three things why we need support and resistance. It tells us where price is going to react. Number one, over here, another reaction, another reaction, another reaction. Where market is going to pause from Friday 29th of May all the way to 4th June. Price has been within this zone. You get it? And then the last thing is where market is going to reverse. Since this side, this area, this zone pushed price back up, it was able to push price back up again, and this is the third time. So that is the importance of support and resistance. Do not forget, support and resistance has three main things that is gonna help us. It shows us what price, or it shows us where price is going to react, where price is going to pause, and where price is going to reverse. Then what is support? Now technically, over here, support is a price area where the market tends to stop falling and bounce upward. Think of it as a floor. So you realize that when price gets here, price stops falling, and then what? There is rejection. Just based on this week, you can tell that there's a rejection, and then pushes back up. And then The opposite is the resistance. Resistance is a price level where the market tends to stop rising and fall downward. So, why does it happen that way? For a support, for a support, it pushes price up. And secondly, there are more buyers. When I say buyers, I mean buy orders in that zone. So what happens? Price starts to push up within that zone, within that area, and then resistance. That we also call our supply zone. It's an area where there are more sellers than buyers. So what happens over there? Price pushes back down because there are more sell orders there to be executed. So now, how do you identify supply and demand regions? And why, before then, why do support and resistance work? Because traders around the world are watching the same levels. Banks, institutions, retail traders all place orders around previous highs, lows, and key psychological levels. So right now, over here on my chart, you are going to see, let's move to the weekly. Let's even move to the monthly. You're going to see that I have key psychological levels labeled up here. Now, psychological levels are rounded up figures, like for example 1.50000. It's a psychological level. Why is it a psychological level? When we are communicating, I can just mention that number easily to you. It's a rounded up figure. Nobody is going to be saying, people do not usually say buy at 1.34524. No. What they say is buy at 1.3400. You get it? So that's what psychological levels are. Now, how to identify supply and demand? How to identify supply and demand? Now, when you want to identify supply and demand, one thing that you should consider is previous swings. Now, what is a swing? Very good question, someone would ask. What is a swing? This is a swing. Now, I have my part 2 here. I'm going to outline my market structure, right? So we have higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, and then we change it. The market trend changes. We have a lower low, and then we move here, came back down here, came back here. Now this is what a swing is. The movements from one movement from the upper side to this downside is what a swing is. Another swing can be, this is also another swing. This is also another swing. This is also another swing. This whole zone. So for you to identify support and resistance clearly, what should you do? You should what? Identify previous high swing highs and swing lows. That's all. So for example, over here, which is this side, this is a swing high, this is a swing low, this is another swing high, this is another swing low. So now you realize that if I am able to get this, and then I draw my resistance here on this chart, I am representing my resistance with red, and then I'm going to use my demand or my supply, my demand or my support. I'm going to use blue. So realize something that happened, something very interesting. After having these two zones, what happened in the market? Now remember, it's not a point. Support and resistance is not a line, it's not an exact figure, but it's a zone, it's an area. So what happens here? This area pushes price up, and this same area that push price down, the same area, let me mark it down here. The same area that push price down to this side is now pushing price down here. You get it? So if you are able to consider swing highs and lows, you are going to have good support and resistance zones as well. And funny enough, look at what happens again. Just like I said, it's a zone. So you do not be so rigid in when you are drawing support and resistance, saying that no, just a pass it just broke. And if you look on this on the 1 hour, if you look at this on the 1 hour, probably a wick, just a wick. It's just probably a wick. So it's a zone, and then this is even a wave high trade, because this is a confirmation to the upside, right? But then we'll learn more about this another time. All right, so identifying swing highs and lows is one of the easiest ways for you to identify support and resistance, areas where price has reversed multiple times. Now, for example, this zone, this zone, let me show you the zone again. The zone, initially price came here, and then what happened? Price shot back up. So we mark it because it's now a swing, and then price came here again and price shot back up. What does it tell? It tells you that this is a strong zone. So what happens? You label that zone as a resistance zone. Sorry, a support zone. You label that zone as a support zone. So definitely price can push back up again when price is here. Guys, market is dropping after I told you guys to get out of this trade. If we get a confirmation to the downside, we are going to join again. That's just how it is sometimes. GPBUSD. So another way to identify support and resistance zone, areas where price has reversed multiple times, previous swing highs and swing lows, psychological round numbers. Now, this one is quite tricky. You see, this over here. I don't know how many of you can see this, but you see this black line here. I think let me increase the boldness. You see this black line over here? It represents the psychological level 1.34500, and look at what price did anytime that price gets to this 1.34500. And price just rejects off. Price was managed to break out of this psychological zone, and then price will test again. Anytime that price gets there, there's a little bit of reaction. So psychological levels are also important when dealing with support and resistance. Alright, and then consolidating zones. So zones that are ranging. That one is clearly going to point out to you that when market gets here, it drops. When market gets to this point, it drops, and it's so simple. So simple that way. Very, very easy. Now, one powerful concept that you have to understand is that when support breaks, it usually becomes what? Resistance. When we break support, it becomes a resistance. A very, very simple concept. Very, very simple concept. Now, this is a good example. So you realize that this used to be a resistance zone, and price market was doing this lower low, lower high, lower low, and price went up. And what did price do? It just came back to retest this resistance zone, and then it became what? A demand zone, and pushed price all the way up. You get it? So when resistance breaks, it often becomes support, and when support breaks, it also becomes resistance. It often becomes resistance. Very simple. Alright, so let's just watch the chart of GPBUSD. What am I looking out for today? Probably we are consolidating too. Let's see. I have a few things that look also as my confirmation signs. But when I see them, I'm just gonna tell you. And when there's something called rule reversal, right? When you're studying about support and resistance, rule reversal. So is the practice, or is the rule reversal is when support breaks and it often become resistance, and when resistance breaks, it often become new support. The key word here is often. Often. Remember, often. Not always, but often. And that is what we call rule reversal. So in live trading, I don't just draw lines. I wait for price to react at these levels. A level alone is not enough. What matters is how price behaves when it gets there. Now, one thing that I want you to note when you are trading support and resistance is that just because I have drawn support over here, we are buying, and then I have drawn support over here, doesn't mean that just like that I should be buying there. No, it doesn't work that way. What really matters is that how is price going to react in that zone. How is price going to react in that zone? So do I see my confirmations in that zone before I place a trade? Do I see my entry triggers, my entry criteria? Do I see it's forming there, or just because I've drawn this zone with a rectangle and I'm calling it support, it just becomes support? No, it doesn't work that way. At least it doesn't work that way for me. All right. And let's see if we can get a trade in these lower time frames. Let's see if we can get a short scalp before we end today's stream. So we still have some internal structure here. Now, truth be told, this is not a very good point that I would like to sell because there's liquidity here. there's liquidity. There's liquidity out there. And there's also liquidity somewhere here. But if you want to take a risky scalp, you can do this. Can take this trade here when market should price get to this point 1.3451. Then you can hit it, you can hit a sell, and you're gonna get your sell trade, but then your stop loss shouldn't be anywhere above here. Minimum it should be around 1.3458. 1.3458. Yep. Because after here there's another zone here, and for this zone, reason why I wouldn't be taking the zone here is that of just at the top. So let's see how this reacts. Today I started the live stream earlier, unfortunately. Let me see how many minutes you've done. Let me see how many minutes we have here. If you have a question on what we spoke about, this is a risky setup. That's bear in mind. Not risk a lot. Don't risk more than 0.5 of your account size on this trade. And when you are in profit, please make sure to protect. When I say protect yourself, I mean SL to entry, right? So there's nothing in the chat. Let's see, it's 2:21, 2:25. We'll be done with today's live stream. I will be here tomorrow. Today we didn't check our dues because I already checked it. Financial dues. Okay, so tomorrow we have done farm payroll at 12:30. Alright. So I think tomorrow's stream we're gonna start around 12:15. Just so we can watch the NFP and if we have any trades for the NFP. I usually do not trade before NFP. Yeah. But then for the love of it, for the love of the game, I mean. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna be here tomorrow. Alright. Just a minute more. And then we'll be done with today's stream. Be done very. Is that? Oh, market is dropping. Market is dropping. Our zone. Nobody should enter. This is your zone. Do not sell here. If it doesn't get here, allow the trade go. But do not sell, because if you have to sell here, this is your SL. And you shouldn't be entering a trade with a risk reward of 6.9. It's not even 1.69. It's not even 1:1. So always maintain a good risk to reward, have a proper risk to reward ratio, and you'll be good. Certain opportunities will pass you by. It's good, it's okay. If you held on to yesterday's trade idea, you'll be making money. After this long consolidation, I got out of break even. Because my strategy and certain candlestick patterns indicated that I needed to get out as per my strategy, and I got out. And that was the first thing I said in this stream. But if you missed it, you should be enjoying right now, and we are trying to join in again. But if you can't, hopefully tomorrow we're gonna be here 12:15 GMT, right? All right, it's now 2:27. Let's just watch this market and then we end at 2:30.